Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Marketers Code. Was meant to be a meetup, ended up a webinar due to coronavirus. It's good for me. This is usually how I do things, through a camera. No nervous sweats, meeting people in person. So today we have Jose from Builtvisible, who is going to show us how to use JS Node, which is a particularly cool kind of graphing tool. Jose, chime in if I said that wrong, but I'm pretty sure I used it as a graphing tool with Python at one point. But if you want to tell us about your talk.
No, it's just backend for JavaScript. But yeah, like I'll be talking about taking Google index data at scale, and that means any website from anything that a few thousand URLs to millions of URLs. So yeah, hopefully you guys like it.
Yeah, they will. I will be talking generally about my kind of journey through to figuring out how I think the machines are going to do lots of our jobs. Just a bit of housekeeping. I was going to open up with like the toilets are over there, but that's a crap joke, so I'm not going to do it. There was a pun in there too. That was a good one, I thought. After the webinar, we're going to join the Corona Arms, which is a virtual pub set up by Chris Simmons and Shane Jones. And essentially, it's kind of full of marketers, but mostly SEOs. And we just go over there and we talk. We try not to talk about coronavirus, and we just talk about life and what's going on. It's quite fun. I like to whittle wood, so I'm sitting whittling wood while I'm talking to everybody most of the time. But I do like encourage everybody to go because it's really nice, and it's nice to meet people or chat to people that you speak to on Twitter, but you don't actually have face-to-face, even though this isn't technically face-to-face conversations with. So I recommend everybody goes over there. Technically, if I have set up Zoom correctly, you should be immediately redirected at the end of the webinar. So you should be booted right into the Corona Arms. So I will kick off my presentation, and I will just set this up just now. Hopefully everybody can see this. So why did I create a deck called The Rise of the Learning Machines? Essentially, I just want to kind of share with everybody what I have seen over the past few years of coding. So I started coding in 2014, I think it was. And just like this whole world opened up in front of me. And I want to share with people like why I think you should code, what I think the indicators are that are going on in the world that should lead marketers to code more. And yeah, let's kick off with that. So a caveat, I love machines. I've always loved machines. Like I love the Terminator franchise. Even if the movies are terrible, I love them. And it's not because of the carnage and the violence. It's mostly because I'm amazed that we could potentially at some point create a very, very intelligent digital life form that can actually outsmart us at some point. And right now we are building, and there are people, like super clever people out there building frameworks and tools that are allowing us to do aspects of our job in a very clever way and do it better than us. So we're moving towards that world. How did I get into this? So I am a marketer with like close to 20 years experience, but in 2014, as I mentioned, I decided to start coding. And I'd always wanted to code, but I never had the motivation because I didn't have an actual problem to solve. In 2014, I was given that problem. I was trying to make my Facebook cost per install campaign perform as well as my peers who worked in much bigger game industries, game companies. And what I found that they were accessing the data directly from Facebook's API, and I was using the dashboards. So I was never going to be able to compete with those guys unless I learned to access the API data. And part of the API was written in Python. So that immediately drove me to wanting to learn Python to solve my marketing problems. So from there, I went in a couple of kind of Python courses, kind of like data visualization courses and stuff like that using Python. And then I came across machine learning. And this is just like, this blew my mind because there was already pre-built libraries out there that could do parts of my job really well if I could figure out how to implement them and use them. So this is basically what's driven me. Like a couple of years later, I started the DATABOI YouTube channel. And I think that's how a lot of you have come across me through hopefully helping you guys to code. Here's a statement. Marketing technology is the future and it's already here. It does sound like a terrible statement, but let's break it into parts. So marketing technology is the future. I'm saying that it's like our future as individual marketers, marketing to build their own technology and use their own technology and be able to integrate with other people's marketing technology is the future. It's going to help us become more digital in our approach to our jobs as opposed to quite analog, spreadsheets, Google Sheets, things like that. And then to address the second part, that it's already here. It is here. It has been here for decades, and we have been wrestling with it as a community, and it has logos. It is Google, Facebook, Amazon's another one. So Google and Facebook have been using machine learning for decades. And we, as marketers, have been working with their platforms, whether it's organic search or paid search or Facebook ads. And we've been trying to wrestle and deal with this digital deluge that comes in from Facebook and Google. They have machines that, like, every time we do a query or set up an ad campaign, it's not like, we all know that it's not like a little gnome that goes away and fetches the result and gives us the answer, or on Facebook, a little gnome that goes away and gives us a news feed. We know that it's machines are doing it. And these guys have become like the best at doing this in the world. And we need to level up our skills to be able to compete with them, to be able to move as fast as those guys are. For example, ad bidding can be like super duper fast. And we can't respond because we have to sleep. So if we can build machines that can do things while we're sleeping, that's super useful for us. How do I know that this is not a fad? I don't think my gut instinct is appropriate enough to convince enough people. So first of all, the logos that I just showed you before, Google, Facebook, Amazon, most Silicon Tech Valley companies, your operating system on your phone, your operating system on your laptop, these are all full of machine learning and deep learning algorithms. So we know, and these guys have been using it for decades, so we know that this is definitely something that isn't going away. These guys have invested millions, probably billions of dollars in their infrastructure. Secondly, this just didn't come out of nowhere. Machine learning, well, it was basically a lot of machine learning you'll hear in like SaaS services. They're using Bayesian, like a kind of jacked up version of Bayesian statistics. And Bayesian statistics have been around since like the 1700s. So like, this is like, the theoretical approach to all this stuff is like really old. And it's just now we're getting the kind of technology and the infrastructure in place to be able to like turbocharge it. Also, you'll have heard a lot about deep learning in the past couple of years, maybe the past 10 years, it started to get a lot of hype around it, particularly in the past like 2 or 3. But deep learning's been around since the 70s. And the godfather of deep learning, Jeff Hintoff, I watched a podcast with him on it once, and he was talking about how like people were basically like laughing at him, his peers were laughing at him and his colleagues for like going down this back propagation algorithm route, which is one of the key algorithms in deep learning, and saying it will never work, it's too expensive. I mean, how can you actually make this work? And that was kind of true at the time, but something has changed over time. And that change can be explained by Moore's law. And if anybody's heard of Moore's law, you'll know what it is. But if you haven't, then essentially what it means is every couple of years, we'll get way more processing power. And we see this in mobile phones. And we'll pay less for it. So like the cost of mobile phones over the past couple of years haven't went up quite so much given the fact that they've got more and more powerful. So Moore's law has come true, and that has allowed all this shift in technology. This chart is pretty awesome, and at the same time very, very busy. So just to show you up here, millions of instructions per second is MIPS, and up here is a million instructions per second. So like that's a lot, I think. But to give it in relative terms, this is the growth of computational power over time versus cost. So the reforecast trend, so I think we want to be looking at a 1995 one, because as we get more computational power, these lines seem to get sharper and sharper as they move up. And currently we are sitting at around, so it's 2020, we are sitting around 1995, we're sitting around monkey brain sort of level. Look at all of the amazing stuff that we can do with the computing capacity of a monkey brain. And it reckons here in 2030, although this is a pretty old chart, it reckons that we will be at human level by 2030. But if this chart has been updated, I mean, human brain level might become much sooner. Just give me one moment, guys. Rookie error, did not plug in the laptop. Back. Sorry about that. It was plugged into another jack, which wasn't plugged into the wall. So I suspect before 2030, we will get to processing power equivalent to the human brain. Although I want to say that tentatively, it might be the same compute power, but it's not necessarily works as complex as a human brain does. So we're not going to be getting Arnie lookalikes walking around the street. Another reason why I don't think this is going away. So we'll talk about Azure machine learning. So that's Microsoft, Amazon machine learning. These are kind of out-the-box machine learning platforms. So you can just kind of sign up today and start playing around with it, actually, because it's very much kind of plug and play, clicky click. And TensorFlow is Google, and PyTorch is Facebook, and IBM is Watson as IBM, but it's not as big. And all these tech companies have spent, again, probably hundreds of millions of dollars investing in either frameworks or out-the-box platforms for people to be able to use machine learning. So they're trying to push this door open at the same time. So I know that this is definitely not going away. I took a sniff around Amazon's the Amazon machine learning and the Azure machine learning platform websites, and these are some of the clients that they're working with. So like everything from NASA to Azos, like NFLhotels.com. This is just some of the logos that I took off the website. You've got GE in there, so if GE is in there, that means that they're pretty much in every industry. So every industry is probably using Amazon in some way. So we've got a movement from technology companies using it, then delivering their old infrastructure to open source, and either open source and frameworks or having like reasonably priced platforms that you can buy the machine learning tools on. And then you've got all people actually using it right now. They might not be using it for marketing. They might be using it for other purposes, but at some point we're going to be moving it into marketing. It is literally a transformational shift in what we're doing. I just wanted to give you some stats that I found. So I don't have anything to do with Albert AI. I was at a conference and I heard the CEO speaking, and I was like pretty impressed by what they were doing. So I grabbed these from their website, and you know, a 64% improvement in ROAS after turning on their tool. That's really impressive, but what's like super duper impressive is the next one. And this is why I think we're all going to not be out of jobs. We're always going to need humans. And that's because when you blend humans and technology together, you get absolutely massive gains. And in this case, like 130% ROAS. The goal was met in 3 days. So that's why I don't think the technology is going to come in and like sweep us out and clear us out. But it's going to mean that we're going to have to like upskill and learn how to use this technology and sit somewhere in that mix. Because those numbers that Alba AI are putting out are really quite special. Google for universal ad campaigns have similar numbers, but if anybody's used universal ad campaigns, you might not fully believe their numbers. So one thing that I have not spoke about is data. Let's talk about data. So I put this out in November. The next 5 to 10 years is about getting data in the right order. The next, then the machines can start getting creative, right? Because we've got really powerful compute. We can make the machines run. We have good algorithms, but we don't necessarily have the right data. There are some companies that do, but everyday companies like agencies and most small, medium, or even large companies don't have their data in place. The reason I'm showing you this tweet is because a friend of mine, Andrew Trask, he liked it. He doesn't always like everything that I like, but I like this statement he does because this is the stuff that he's into. And he is a senior research scientist at DeepMind, which is Google's AI company. He's also like super clever. He's also running a project called OpenMind, which is about privacy preserving first technology, which is how I got to learn about Andrew and meet him. So we'll talk a bit about that later on. And John Mew, I don't know how John saw my tweet because, as you can see, I only had 3 retweets and 14 likes. But that's enough social validation for me to tell me that I'm going on the right path by like upskilling in Python and learning to code and learning to use machines to do my art marketing activity, because those 2 guys definitely know what they're talking about. However, we have one significant problem. We need to label our data, and you might have heard of the phrase training set, and every machine in the world currently, there's people working on solving the training set problem, but it's still an academic problem. Every person in the world needs a labeled data set to be able to apply machine learning. So you need to label your data. I put out this tweet because I was just interested to see if anybody else was thinking or doing this. And like 33% said yes. I mean, it's only 12 people, but it's 33%. They are proactively labeling their data for context, because you need to give the machine context. You need to give the machine targets it's meant to hit. You need to label the data so the machine can understand these things. And most of the population said, I don't know what you mean. I've just explained essentially what I mean by labeling data. You need to create training sets with the data you've got just now and build really good training sets with the data you've got just now in order to feed it into a machine learning algorithm, in order to get a good enough performance to continue investing time and money into it. So data comes first, infrastructure comes second. If you're in a really privileged position, you can do them in parallel. This is something that I was chatting to a friend about the other day, and it's single-use data, and it sucks. Single-use data, the way I'm referring to it, is data which only has one purpose or only can inform one aspect of what you're doing. So a good example of it would be Facebook ad level creative metrics. I mean, they're useful for informing that aspect of it, but it doesn't give you too much other information. The other thing would be maybe link metric data. That's another kind of single-use data. And these things individually are quite useful, but fundamentally, there's not much difference from continuing to look at single-use data and what people were doing 10 years ago. But we have technology to do better than single-use data now. And I think a good example of how important this is to people who manage data on a daily basis is that Google Data Studio, one of the primary features they released, one of their big features, was blending data. To be able to take multiple sources of data that have a kind of primary key and just glue them together and look for insights in there. So once you've managed to step away from single-use data and build complex data sets, you're much closer, you're very close to getting to that machine learning stage. So if you ever ask me, single-use data sucks, I mean, there's so many things out there that I'm seeing right now, like cool tools like BERT and stuff like that, that you can use. And it's basically just adding another layer of complexity to your job, and it's not making it easier. And if you don't pair that data with other important like target sort of data, maybe conversion rate, whatever, then you're just making your job harder, not necessarily doing better at your job. So single-use data sucks. Try build and blend other data. And the reason I say that is because learning how to access, clean, transform, and manage data into a pipeline, I believe, will be a key job for a marketer in the next 10, 15 years. You might not necessarily be doing it hands-on all the time yourself. You might be working within teams that are doing it, and you need to know how all the flow works. But essentially, if marketers don't get on top of this, there are lots of data scientists out there that can do this, and it's part of their job. However, where you would level up against the data scientists is you have the domain expertise. You can bring all this knowledge about how marketing works and how the channels that you're working with work, and you can build really good data sets, whereas a data scientist might know some of this stuff, but they don't have decades of experience doing it. So single-use data sucks. Build data pipelines. It will start opening up a whole wealth of knowledge and information that will help improve your campaigns. So that's me kind of talked about why I think you should code from a like right now perspective. I just want to talk about this topic that I've made up called marketing blind. Marketing blind has come out of the work that I'm doing with the OpenMind open source project. So that's OpenMind as in mining. .org, and essentially it's an open source platform. Imagine it to be like Apache for web. Skipping ahead. Imagine it to be like Apache for web, where essentially privacy is first. All the databases for any platform is actually locally stored. All the data in there is encrypted, and the device is essentially locked down for humans won't be able to read the data, they won't be able to see anything, but they can still do calculations using deep learning algorithms. So in a world where we don't get any marketing data and we're relying on machines to make statistical judgments or make marketing judgments based on stats or change the UI based on behavior, we are going to need to understand how that technology works. We're going to need to know how to build it. Hopefully there'll be people in this webinar who will learn Python and then learn how to build it. That would be amazing. I'd be so happy if somebody did that. So I'm thinking this is not right now. This is 5 to 10 years, although I'm saying it's not right now. Right now, they are working and building a COVID tracking app that's entirely private, unlike all the other ones that are out there right now, which are storing your data. So it might be a lot sooner than we realize. But yeah, so I'm just thinking like, where's my career 5-10 years time when marketing data is invisible and it's only machines that are allowed to see it due to the privacy concerns that frankly Cambridge Analytica and Facebook kind of highlighted. But I don't want to end this in a low note, and I don't believe, as I said earlier, I don't believe this is the end of marketing. I think as long as we all upskill and learn, just keep take our talent of knowing how things work in the marketing sphere and then apply this like coding language to it, we'll be able to level up and just keep riding that curve into the future. You can learn this stuff. I mean, my background, I've been a marketer for like years and years and years. My degree's in psychology. So I'm not a computer scientist, and I managed to pick this stuff up, and I'm getting better and better at it every day. And more advanced every day. And it just takes a lot of time and devotion, and potentially you need to have a problem you want to solve right now with it. So if you are interested in learning Python and joining a community of coders, I'm kind of trying to build one over here in Slack. So you can head over to Slack, you can head over to YouTube. So there's 2 beginners marketing coding courses. There's one on LinkedIn, there's one on YouTube. There's slightly different content. And there's Python 3030. So if you're in the UK right now on lockdown, this probably works for you really well, because it's 30 minutes of Python for 30 days, and it should give you all the tools that you come across on a daily basis with Excel for data analysis, but in Python. And if you fancy following me on Twitter, I'm on Twitter, and I'm also on Instagram. But yeah, that's my chat. I will stop sharing my screen. Jose, I think we are good to get you in, and then after it's all over, we can maybe take some questions.
Yeah, sounds good, man. That was really cool. That was really cool. Really enjoyed your presentation. So in my case, my presentation is going to be a little bit more hands-on, because I'm a practical SEO, a pragmatic person. So I think having something that people can use right from today is something that I wanted to share. So let me just jump right into my presentation. Can you see that? I hope you can see that.
Yes, I can see it.
Awesome.
Get it in presentation mode.
Yeah, there you go.
Boom, working.
Amazing. All right. So first of all, thank you so much, everyone, for joining to this first event, and thanks, Nick, to putting it together. I'm really excited to be here. So first of all, just wanted to quickly say who I am. So I'm Jose Hernado. I'm a technical SEO consultant at Builtvisible. And for those of you who don't know who Builtvisible is, we are a digital marketing agency based in London, and we focus exclusively on organic performance. We specialize in technical SEO, content strategy, digital PR, and analytics, and we deal primarily with medium and large-scale websites that target audiences online, both nationally and globally. So today I'll be talking to you about checking Google index status at scale with Node.js. And I just wanted to show you how I'm gonna divide this presentation very quickly. So first of all, I'm gonna be talking about the challenge that is getting Google index data at the moment, and how important indexing is for your site. Second, I'm gonna be talking about how you can get this data using Node.js at scale. And I'm going to be showing you how you can do it using a script that we've developed internally. So you can, we open source, so you can download it today and start using it today. And I'm going to be showing you how easy it is to install and to run it. And hopefully the live demo goes well, fingers crossed. And the last point is about act on this new data source and how you can use this data to inform your SEO strategy. And I'll be showing you a few real-life use cases that we've used at Builtvisible, and I'll be showing you a few more so you can see what kind of data you can get and how you can use that for your own strategy. So let's jump right in. So first of all, the challenge. So you have your website, you're dealing with your website, and you've created great content. You've optimized it for search queries. You've made it really fast and with a clear architecture. So now you need, or you want to get users through Google, so they can benefit from your product or service that you offer, and at the end of the day that you can get revenue from it. But the problem is that if Google doesn't index your website or part of your website, it means that you won't get users organically and you won't get any revenue from it. So what is the first step in order to get index? The first step is for Googlebot to crawl your site. And how much of your site does Googlebot crawl on average? So I found this really interesting case study. It was essentially a study of 200 different websites ranging across 4 different slots. And you can see that if you're a website that has up to 10,000 URLs, you see that Googlebot doesn't crawl on average your whole site. They saw that only 72% of the URLs from the website were actually hit by Googlebot, and only 45% of those actually got any clicks. If you see how the size of the website increases, you would see the average scroll ratio grows lower and lower, to the point that if you are a website with more than 1 million URLs, your website gets crawled on average by Googlebot only 34%. Only 34% of the URLs from your website will get crawled, and only 10% will get any organic clicks. So that is massive. Okay, so now in your particular case, if you are lucky enough to get access to server logs, does Googlebot crawling data, is Googlebot crawling data enough to determine Google indexing status? So the answer, the unfortunate answer is no, because Googlebot's crawling behavior doesn't determine indexing status. You cannot guarantee that the URLs that have been requested by Googlebot are actually in Google's index. Okay, so now imagine that you don't have server logs. What is the second best tool that you can gather this data? Second best tool is GSC, but the problem is that you rely on partial data provided by GSC because there are lots of limitations through GSC. Using the URL inspection tool only gets you a few hundred URLs and you cannot automate it. And second, you will get limited by number of exports, and there is no API in GSC to get Google index data. Therefore, the best thing that you have right now is Proxymetrics. But Proxymetrics doesn't mean, it's not the same as having accurate data. Therefore, up to this point today, we have no idea what pages are indexed from your site. And unfortunately, that was until now. Now, there is a way I will be showing you today. But before I go into the live demo, I just wanted to get it out there. A small disclosure. If you are using this method goes against Google Terms of Service because it automatically requests search queries from Google Search. This is not uncommon in the SEO industry because if you use a rank tracker, that is exactly what a rank tracker does. It just scrapes Google. And although it's not the way that I would like to do things, because rules are there for something. Hopefully Google listens to us and eventually creates an API and we can get this data automatically through GSC. So once I said that, let's go into the cool stuff. Let's go into the live demo. So I've prepared in here and you have to go through. So first of all, you would need to download, you need to have installed Node.js on your website, on your local machine, sorry. Second of all, you download the script that our senior developer, Alvaro Fernandez, did. And I have to say that full credit to him on creating this amazing script. He's super talented, and this script is absolutely amazing. You will see in just a moment. So once you go here, you should either clone it using your terminal of choice, or you can directly through. Once you download it, you will see something like this. You will see a folder with all the files in there, and I'm going to open it in VS Code. That is my text editor of choice. Okay. So once you're here, you will see these two JS files. One is the API key, and the other one is the actual script. What is the API key? The API key is something that the script needs in order to crawl multiple times Google search. And the way you can get this API is going through Scraper API. I've created a dummy account, so faster. But essentially, if you go to Scraper API, you can sign up for free, and you get 1,000 API calls completely for free. No need to put your credit card or your details or anything. And it's super fast and it's super useful. So let me get into the dashboard of the account. So once I go into my dashboard, API key, I put it to this slot, and you save it. Okay. So now that we have the API key, now we can run the script. Remove that results.csv. So the thing that you need is a list of URLs that you should get into a normal CSV. This is just a regular CSV. And you should definitely, you have to call it urls.csv because that is what the script will be expecting. So in order to run the script, you first of all need to install all the respective modules that are on the packagation. So I'm just gonna run that. I already have them, just so you see that is really simple, npm install. And now that I have all the URLs, I'm gonna input npm start. That's all, that's all you need. And now we will start seeing the URLs from this list popping up one by one. Okay, so while that is running, I wanna show you a few really interesting things that I think this script, why this script is amazing. So first of all, you would see that the URLs that I've used have different quirks. So as you can see, for example, in this one, you see that there is a plus sign in there. This is an international character URLs. This is the same. This is Arabic. This is our website. This is a clean URL. But one thing that this script does amazingly well is handling URLs from every kind without any issue. So if your website has potentially problematic URLs, this script will handle it. If Google has index.url, the script will find it 100%. Then another really interesting thing that I think would be good to mention is that the script is limited to 5 concurrent requests. So it would do 5 requests maximum at a time. This is done by design because Scraper API allows 5 concurrent requests on their free plan. But if you were to get a better plan, you can change the number from 5 to 10 or 50, depending on how many requests your provider or Scraper API allows you. So that's really easy. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that Alvaro did this function in here that I think is super cool. This check errors function. This check errors function is amazing. So because we're using a proxy service, you will most likely get errors at some point. Therefore, what the script does is it will pack it all into an errors.csv, and then once it runs through your whole list of URLs, it will rerun the errors, renaming the error CSV to urls.csv, and then it will recycle all those errors again. So you will always get all the information from your URLs at any point. Cool. So now that the script has finished, you will see a success message in here, and you will see a small summary in here that says how many URLs are indexed in total and how many detected as not indexed. So I'm going to just file in here very quickly. You can open this in Excel, of course. So I'm going to show you very quickly the results. So you can see that the script gives you a CSV, normal CSV, which is just a small table that gives you all the URLs that you checked, in this case 26. And in the column, the second column, you would see the results from the check. And you would see that the problematic URLs had no issue whatsoever in handling them. This plus, this is Arabic, this is Thai, so no problem whatsoever. So amazing, and it ran perfectly, so thumbs up. So let me go back to my presentation. Okay. So just a brief mention that our script outperforms every other method available at the moment, even GSC and other third parties. You can handle clean URLs, parameterized URLs, and as you've seen, it handles perfectly international characters, encoded characters, reserved characters like the plus, or unsafe characters like the caret or the minor symbol, for example. So, okay, so now that we have all the data, what can you do with this data? How it can inform your SEO strategy? So for me, I think it's really important to always have a performance-driven approach. That means that your data has to be insightful. It has to get you interesting information. Second, it has to be actionable. You have to do something with it. And then it has to be profitable. That means that it's pushing your KPIs. So let me give you just the first use case that I think would be really interesting for you guys. This is what we call a sitemap health check. And it basically answers the question of how many URLs from your XML sitemap are actually indexed. That is as easy as taking your XML sitemap. You will troll it with your crawler of choice, Screaming Frog, DeepCrawl, OnCrawl, whatever you want. And then you will get the list of URLs. And you will put it on your urls.csv file. then you will run that through the Google Index Checker script, and then the script will output a results.csv for you to handle. Okay, so let me give you a real case that I did a few days ago. So I took Argos.co.uk because they are a massive e-commerce site. They have more than 2 million URLs, and their sitemap in particular had 94,000 URLs. It's a sitemap index with 5 different sitemaps, and in total it has 94,000. So I didn't want to run out of credits from my account, so I only took a sample of 21,000 URLs, and here are the results. So from these 21,000 URLs, almost 19,000 were indexed, but 2,000 were not indexed, which was quite surprising because a sitemap should always have the most important URLs. So once I have this data, what would be my recommendation? First of all, we need to identify if the URLs are important to your site's bottom line. Like, are these URLs supposed to be bringing money to your company? If no, then you should remove them from the sitemap, because the sitemap should only be the URLs that are most important to you. But if those are important, then you need to continue investigating. You need to identify how deep these URLs are within the architecture of your site. You need to identify how many internal and external links are going to these URLs. If you want, and this is completely up to you, you can check a small pool of these URLs and check it on the Google Index Coverage Report, which is quite all right for overall information, and check if they have any issues, either crawl issues, like crawling issues or some warnings, or if they have been excluded completely from the index purposefully by Google. But it's not necessary to do this check. In any case, if those are important URLs, you should choose a tactic. Either you try to bring these URLs further up in the hierarchy of your site, so you can improve the visibility, or you try to get more internal links to your site, to those specific URLs, for example. In any case, it's always recommended to isolate these URLs into a new sitemap.xml, all on their own, so you can monitor the progress of these specific URLs in the future, once the tactics that you've chosen have been implemented. Okay, so hopefully that was good for you guys. Let me just move into the second. Second case is what I personally call log file analysis plus, which is once you have server logs, how many URLs that Googlebot has requested are actually indexed. For this, you would need your server logs, and you will need to filter anything that is not a verified Googlebot hit. Then you will get that list of URLs, and you will input it into the urls.csv within the script. And then the script will output a normal CSV that you can use later on. So let me give you a real life example of this log file analysis plus. This is from an actual client, so obviously I'm not allowed to disclose their name or anything, so I'm just gonna give you the data. For this particular client, we saw that it had a lot of hits for non-canonical URLs, a lot of requests to non-canonical URLs. In this case, it was URLs that contain uppercase, and the canonical was lowercase. So first of all, we wanted to identify how many of these 160,000 URLs were indexed, and if the canonicals, if the corresponding canonicals were actually indexed, and therefore there is a duplication issue, or if Google is choosing the non-canonical version instead of the canonical version. So let me show you the results. So the results were as follows. We saw that almost 64% of the URLs, the non-canonical URLs, were not indexed, but super high 36% of the URLs were actually indexed in favor of the non-canonical version, which was quite worrying, to be honest. Okay, so now that we have the data, what can we do with this? Well, what would be the recommendation? If this was, I'm gonna give you what I would recommend, not to this kind specifically, but what I would recommend if you run into a case like this. So first of all, you want to identify if the canonical tag is correctly placed, like if the non-canonical version is actually should be a non-canonical. And then you want to identify the root cause of of this disparity? Why is Googlebot hitting the non-canonical URLs? Is it because there is internal linking, wrong internal linking going into these URLs, or because external sources are linking into it? Then you should consider redirecting the non-canonical URLs to the canonical URLs before even fixing the internal linking, which you should anyway, but you should consider redirecting. It might not make sense in your case, so always double check that it makes sense for you. And as always, you should create a new sitemap XML file with these problematic URLs to encourage Googlebot to revisit those URLs, and obviously for monitoring purposes, because once you've implemented the tactics, you want to know how successful you've been with those tactics. So hopefully that was useful for you, but I'm going to show you a few more cases that I think you can take home from this. First one is checking uncontrolled facet navigation. So if you're an e-commerce site, for example, and your facet navigation is not really well controlled, you can have lots of these parameterized URLs indexed, and that obviously goes into your detriment because it consumes all budget. And if those are indexed, it's very likely that Googlebot is gonna recrawl them at some point. So having a certain number of URLs that you know for sure that are indexed will probably give you some more ammunition to talk to your developers and try to fix the issue as soon as possible. You could also check specific product or category URLs, so you know for sure what products or what categories are indexed and not indexed, and the ones that are not indexed, try to fix them. You can check URLs that have recently had a 404 or a 500 status code and that haven't been de-indexed yet. If you have if that error is legitimate, it's fine. But if it's not legitimate and it's been a mistake, then you want to take action on those URLs that haven't been de-indexed, because you still have the opportunity to consolidate the page rank of your site or the authority of your site as tight as possible. And lastly, you can do a URL migration check. So once you do a full migration, you want to know how fast your site is being crawled if you have the logs, but in any case indexed by Google. So this script will allow you to check how many of the new URLs have been indexed at one point in time. Just before I finish with my presentation, I just wanted to make a small statement, which is that the Google Index Checker that we've developed has opened a door to get really useful, actionable data in bulk for your sites that you couldn't get before. So please use it and definitely act on it. Thanks very much. If you guys want to read more about it, I wrote an article about this specific script that we released and with much more information. And I recommend you to read it if you want to understand a little bit more about the limitations of GSC and some nuances of how you can use this script. Thanks a lot, guys.
That was really cool.
I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go.
Camera time again.
Yeah, hopefully that one. Yeah, good.
Does anyone have any questions? Because we can take questions. Yeah, I really like that scraper API tool. That's quite cool. I'm always looking for new tools that can do stuff like that. But they're becoming more and more expensive because, you know, we all want to build our own tools and scrape stuff. How long did it take you to develop that script?
So because this was sort of like a side project, it took us like a few weekends. Like it was like a few weekends, and obviously like I'm not a developer, and Alvaro was the one doing most of the developing of this. I was more with the logic and like testing the logic and finding these URLs that are so weird. So in total, it probably took us like, if we put it all together, probably like a month, because we we kept finding URLs that were messing up with the script, that were actually indexed, but the script didn't find them. So we had lots of iterations, lots of testing, until we got to the point that we saw, okay, we found every possible iteration of these URLs, and now it works. So it was a lot of test, like trial and error, like coding in general, you know?
Yeah. So like, would it be fair to say that you learned quite a lot of patience while going through the process of developing a tool?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. No, and I am a complete beginner in JavaScript or Python or any other computing language, but I learned so much from this because Alvaro is super talented and he was able to explain me why are we doing this, why this function works like this. Even the script itself is it's sort of, I think it's called like an IFI or something like that. It's called it's essentially like a self. It's a function that calls itself, which was really interesting concept for me. I didn't know that was actually possible. So it was.
You
it was
see that in Python, but that's like so. Amazing. I'd say like when you get into that depth, that's the difference between somebody that can do like data analysis in Python and then start versus somebody who knows how to like build actual systems, platforms, and scripts. And that's like a whole other level of thinking and logic. Yeah. You're calling things that are all over the place. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's stuff that I'm getting into just now, and I'm like, this is like when I get my head fully around that aspect of actually developing systems, because that's the shift. It's like you do need to understand how the system is created and how your idea can then fit into it. But yeah, it's such a good learning process to work with developers like that.
Yeah, also, and I was going to say that for me, it was.
No, finish what you were going to say.
Last thing is that, I was gonna say that it was really interesting to me because I think from us as marketers, we always try to think of the end product, like what we need, you know, like I need to get this information like this, but with like programming doesn't work like that. You have to like first solve like step by step, programmatically find the first step. Okay, I have to solve this first, then I need to solve this, then I need to solve this. And it's a very different approach to what you're used to in life, you know, like programs and coding in particular is very.
It's totally different. Like I feel like that's one of the hardest because I now remember what it's like to learn again for the first time because I've done it like so recently, and it's like getting your head around that you have to chop it into the most minuscule little chunks, and that requires like deep patience. Like it's like, and I feel like as a marketer, because I've grown up in the digital world, like it's something I don't have. That's kind of why I do woodwork, is because you need a lot of patience or you cut yourself. So it's just like I develop in patience to be able to learn to code and then implement the code so it's reusable and scalable. It's like I've always had loads of respect for developers because they're builders, they create amazing shit. But like that, just being part of the process, and you're just like, oh man, your job is this all day, chopping things into tiny little bits. You're like a chef. It's like, so can you see the question in the Q&A?
Let me see. So, Mr. Beginning, sorry. So the script is making some site queries using a proxy. So no. So the script doesn't use the site. The site operator is something like that was at the very beginning what we started using, and we saw that is very, very, very unreliable. Specifically when you go into URLs that are problematic with like parameterized URLs or with specific symbols. So site operator is something that I would use for like a quick check for something, but it's not very reliable. So what the script essentially does, and you can see it in the source code, is it takes the whole URL and it puts it into Google search, because we saw that that's how it identifies the document. It says, oh, you know, the moment that I've seen this query is in this document. So then the script checks on the source code the specific URL to verify if it's indexed or not indexed.
Cool. I don't think we have any other follow-up questions. All right, I think we'll wrap up. I just want to say thanks, obviously, to you, Jose, for doing that and showing us how we can get code and make code work in our day job. And thanks to like Builtvisible, because this was a real world event, and we've moved it online, and you guys have supported in that way too. So it's been great. And if anybody out there in the webinar really wants to learn how to code, just head over to our Slack channel, and yeah, we're all there waiting to help. Cool. All right. I will.
Thanks for
sharing. See you all later. And hopefully I'll see you all in the Corona pub after. Bye.
Yeah, man, definitely. See you there. Bye-bye.